Welcome to season 2, Fractional CMOs and the 90-Day Win. I'm Dean Way. As always, this season we're going to talk about some of the scenarios that companies and these CMOs experience to share lessons learned and tips on how to get the most out of a fractional CMO that you hired. So, hi, Croom.
Hey there, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Croom, okay, so hypothetical situation. Today's day one of a 1-year fractional CMO engagement with a new client, okay? First up, what's the problem most of your clients are going to have when you show up on day one? Or what problem do you go looking for? Because they may not know they have it, but you know it's going to be there. And maybe before that, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
No problem. So my focus is on scientific founders that have invented a new medicine or a new diagnostic or some medical breakthrough. So it tends to be someone who has spent their background as a doctor or in scientific academia that has a novel invention. So the challenges there are, developing the product, the brand,
Right.
and helping that founder get to market and really go from seed to Series A. And that's really my focus.
Okay. And so what problem do they normally have right from the jump? Like, what's the first thing that needs to be tackled?
So the first thing is helping them understand what commercialization really means. And sometimes that's around building the capability. Sometimes that's around building the messaging. There may be branding elements, there may be creative exercises, but often it's standing up what I like to do is a full service, essentially launch capability on a very limited budget. And now with AI and digital, you can really spend very little, but fill the channels, go live with the launch, and start to drive leads and revenue.
Right.
So that's really the name of the game, is sort of what's the least amount of investment for the biggest impact for year one to prove traction.
Okay. That's really good. Okay. So, but obviously they need to be open with you, right? About details. You need to know certain things in order to help them naturally. Right. Like besides that, in your experience, how do these founders either get the most from the fractional CMO that they've brought on, or if you want to answer it a different way, how do they typically waste money when they bring in a fractional CMO?
For sure. So a couple of things. One is a scientific organization has a different cadence, a different sort of time frame of publishing studies or whatever is happening, either building an AI algorithm, to be predictive or a prognostic, or developing a drug. It takes years. When you get to commercial, now you're working at the speed of the market, the speed of the customer. So
Right.
now you're talking about going from months or years into weekly sprints. So the cadence is a lot faster. So number one is acceleration. Number two is a lot of CEOs and founders don't really know how much time it takes to actually develop a marketing or a sales capability. In other words, they'll often say, my God, I didn't realize this was going to be such a heavy lift.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're running the company, inventing new science, trying to do lots of things, managing strategic relationships and investors and board meetings. And so we have to ask a little bit of their time. So it gets kind of down to how skinny can we make it, but fill the channels, have our message everywhere that our customers, need to be, and then get to market in an efficient way.
Okay. So let's move outside, like you and me, for a second. Okay. Imagine that someone else, a friend of yours, just recently became a fractional CMO, and they're about to walk into a company. Maybe it's a little bit further down, like the growth timeline, than the ones that you're working with. And there's already some amount of something like a marketing team already on. Maybe you're in mid-level folks, right? Or else, they're tasked with bringing on and building out a marketing function, and that are like, what sort of lessons would you want to pass along to them? Like, you try to keep your eye on this, or definitely do this, or really don't try to do that. Like, not as a fractional CMO.
Yeah,
with staffers already there.
I really love this question. So, early stage companies tend to have a very loyal team. They've been with the founder from the very beginning. They're family, right? So when you go in to build a capability, just be patient. Like, go slow, listen, be respectful of the skills and capabilities that are there, and then look at the jobs to be done. often the number one job to be done from a marketing perspective is, to support the sales organization,
Right.
build the sales team as an ally. And so be very focused to help drive sales outcomes, right? Evaluate the skills against the jobs needed. And then I would say begin to think about up-leveling or training the team that's there so they can then advance and grow their career. They have a line of sight to their future career growth.
Right.
And then start to bring in potentially other fractional expert resources if you need PR or branding or creative or copywriting or digital expertise or search or technology, et cetera. So there are lots of capabilities that you're going to want to supplement in the team. But I think number one is being respectful, and then not going the other direction. And so I sort of like your point on the earlier question on, what is an opportunity cost or where did things go wrong? But if you don't respect that founding team, you're going to just hit against a political or
Right.
a loyalty barrier that's just going to be potentially existential.
Well, let's think about it from the other perspective. What if you're one of those marketing team members, right? You're a junior or maybe mid-level. You've been there a while. The company has decided to hire a fractional CMO, a term you had to go Google as the employee. You'd never even heard of a fractional CMO. You know what a CMO was, right? And so you went and what can you expect, or what should you do once that fractional CMO hits, is boots on the ground? What should you be, what should you not or not be scared of? What should you think about as far as your own career when a fractional CMO is brought in?
So it's another great question. So number one is understanding that CMO is probably traveling at the board of directors level, working with the CEO every single day, and has to do some heroic lift to drive growth and get to your triple, double to get to $100 million in revenue in 5 years. So they need to come up with, a phenomenal creative breakthrough or build a full service capability or land an amazing strategic relationship that drives some disproportionate growth. So I think number one is help that CEO, get to a bigger boulder. And then meanwhile, the marketing team needs to tackle the day-to-day marketing needs, whether it's lead gen or if it's advertising or message development or content marketing. I would say try to keep that CMO out of the weeds, help them have time to focus on the bigger boulders. And then meanwhile, the marketing team is going to make sure that the nuts and bolts of the operations are happening and that leads are coming in and revenues moving.
Okay. All right. So my next question around this is, and I asked this question because I am not a fractional CMO, right? I'm a copywriter. I specialize in stage one of the buyer's journey. I need to get strangers interested. And so I'm not a fractional CMO. And I find that the fractional CMO community is more or less equally split on this question. And so I really like this question. Okay. Is a fractional engagement better for you anyway, if it's a marathon or a sprint? If it, there's an absolute goal date where X needs to be accomplished, or at least X needs to be done, regardless of whether the results are there. Or is it better if it's sort of like a drip, for however long?
It's another awesome question. The answer is neither, right?
Oh, interesting.
So number one, you're signing up for revenue. We're going to say, look, we're going to sell, we're going to make $3 million in revenue, in the calendar year. But you have to work at the speed of the organization. The CEO only has so much capacity. The team only has so much capacity in terms of their working day, with some weekends. And so, the CMO can be as hard charging as you want. You can work yourself to death if you want to. But most importantly is not overburdening the team. The good news is that you can pretty much skinny things down. You can fill all the channels you want. You can have a ubiquitous message everywhere. You can drive leads. You can stand up marketing, sales, e-commerce, and service around a HubSpot or a Salesforce, with AI enablers now that makes you faster and more capable for less resources. So the marketing person can dial up or down the level of effort. But the point is that don't drive the team into the ground. You can't burn them out. So it's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a cadence that works for that team and culture and the expectations you want to set. That's how I think about it. Just to be productive, while building a culture that's respectful of the team and their families and the things happening in personal lives, and then kind of getting the efficiencies in place so everyone can balance their work and life. I hope that answers your question in some reasonable way.
I think you're the first guest out of 70 something guests who's ever mentioned balancing work and life.
And I just say that because, I get that feedback from the CEO that says,
Yeah.
my gosh, I had no idea, you're going to ask so much time of me. So you
Right.
really only get a few touch points, and they need to be meaningful and very lean, and move the big boulders forward, and then get all that small ball off the table and just get that delegation to get it done.
Right. Okay. I have like one more question, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So in this scenario, the CEO comes to you and says, "Hey, you've been there for like a few months now. And I think you've established a relationship, right?" The CEO comes to you and says, "Hey, I want your help interviewing and helping to vet the last round of candidates for head of sales."
Mm-hmm.
What are your green flags and red flags? Especially since you're starting with like almost seed capital level kind of startups, right? But like, what are your red flags and green flags as you meet these various contenders for head of sales as the fractional CMO?
So I would say I've had very, very good experiences in that process. In other words, a sales executive with 20 years of experience,
Mm-hmm.
comes in and we immediately sync up. The most important orientation for marketing is to be focused on service to the sales team. Marketing drives sales outcomes. I am a service provider to internal groups, whether it's sales or
Right.
service, what have you, right? And so the green flag is an immediate sync. In other words, we know our roles. We know that we are, chocolate and peanut butter. We have to work together symbiotically as a team around an addressable audience. Red flags would be, any disconnect in that area. I really rarely encounter that. Most people, know their job. They've been through it before. They know where they succeed and fail. I would say the following. An example of that is, let's say, around Salesforce, right, where the organization wants to have the platform, they want to have a pipeline that's groomed, and they want to have use cases that are improved over time with a beautiful pipeline forecast. Every organization depends upon it, but we all know that the sales reps hate it. They hate bureaucracy. They don't want to do
Yeah.
it. They don't like the app. They don't want to deal with it day by day. So there is an enrollment to say, look, this does benefit you, but let's do this together. We're a partner as we go down the road of technology platforms, and let's make sure everybody understands the benefits, and can we skinny it down. I think that's typically where there's a little bit of contention if it's not addressed out in the open.
After talking to so many salespeople, I just want to make a point about Salesforce and all sales CRM kind of products, right? Is that, I mean, don't get me wrong, Salesforce has something like 11,000 features. I
Yeah.
mean, it's way more than any one company can read. But what you find is, it used to be a joke in when I was a software developer years and years ago that said, there are two kinds of people in the world: the ones who think everything can be divided into two groups, and the ones who don't. Right, and obviously, the
Yeah.
person telling the joke believes that when it comes to sales CRMs and Salesforce, almost especially, uh, the vast majority of organizations bring in Salesforce as a way to measure and manage salespeople and their activities.
Right.
And a small percentage of them use Salesforce or any sales CRM as a way to help salespeople like progress deals.
Yep.
And if you ask people at Salesforce, they'll tell you like, well, you get Salesforce, so like things don't fall through the cracks and deals make progress and they eventually go to conclusion. But everyone knows that most of the customers buy it so that they can impose metrics and get reports out of it on what salespeople's activity is and projections.
I think
So
that's true.
that's Salesforce to me. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. I think we're in the C to Series A time. Everyone's signed up for collaboration, productivity. We know where we're headed to. Get a couple of $1 million of revenue on the books, and then getting to a meaningful exit is part of that. And if we can help the CEO be successful,
Mhm.
then typically everyone is on board. So I've just been very lucky, I think, with the sales leaders I've had a chance to learn from and work with. And when they're honest to say, that, all this marketing stuff, not going to use it. Salesforce, not going to use it. And
Right.
so glad you told me, because now let's think about, what are other ways we can do to make you successful?
Yeah. What other tools can we use? Because we got to use something.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, this has been really great. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dean. Great to be with you. Really a lot of fun.
Okay. How, first of all, you mentioned it in your intro, so that was fantastic. But just to reiterate, who should reach out to you and how do they contact you?
Yes. So number one is CEOs or founders or even inventors who
Mhm.
have a medical breakthrough. In other words, the biggest crime of all of this is when there is a cure or something really
Right.
huge to transform care, and it's just sitting on the shelf, in the desk, and that founder or doctor can't get it to market. And so please reach out to me, especially to learn about your invention. We'll look at it from a market perspective, from a clinical data perspective. We'll think about the market size, what is the potential revenue value, and then let's talk about what are the simple, easy ways to raise funds, get investors excited, get that to market. LinkedIn is the best way to reach me, and I would love to reach, love to speak with anyone in that regard.
All right. That's it. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Croom. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.